This is Phil again, your favorite Alex Jones fan.
Oh, I'm sorry. What's your name again?
Phil.
Phil. Hi, Phil. You are my favorite Alex Jones fan.
Well, you said I was in the top 2%, and I can't imagine there are more than 50 Alex Jones listeners who watch your show.
Well, I don't know. There could be. Well, let's continue. I don't want to. I have a feeling we're going to have a better argument than that. What's up? What's on your mind today?
Well, I understand you have an open invitation to have people debate various points about libertarianism on your show.
Please.
Okay. So I don't imagine that I'll actually manage to convert you entirely into a libertarian thinker in a short conversation, but...
well, not entirely, but maybe like in the 80s percentile. All right, go ahead.
Okay, I'll aim for 80%, like on an exam. So yeah, basically, I think that you have a few, mischaracterizations when it comes to libertarians. I think recall you saying that to libertarians it's all about a race to the top, and we don't care about the people who are at the bottom, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Is that okay? And the thing is, first of all, I don't see society as a race, in most ways, because if you're pursuing your interests and I'm pursuing my interests, well, your interests are yours, my interests are mine, and most of the time they won't conflict. And in as much as people are looking for the same thing, say money in the market, in the sort of society that libertarians would want, the way to, well, not even win the race, because that wouldn't be quite the right characterization, but, to make it to the top in terms of money, would be just to produce things that other people want, produce goods and services that other people want. And so, the race in that sense is to serve other people, to benefit other people. And I think with that characterization, of course, the calling it a race is, maybe a little too dark a description, because really we just view it as a race in a sense to, benefit your fellow man.
Okay, all right. So aside from your having a problem with the metaphor I used once about race, what are you saying? So I don't understand.
I think that part of your arguments against libertarians depend on a mischaracterization about libertarians' worldview, their motives, that sort of thing. And I
don't care about their motive. I'm talking about the results. I don't care about the motive. I'm sure the libertarian motive is of pure heart. But I don't. That's irrelevant to me. I mean, look. The bottom line is when let me ask you this: when Ron Paul says about the guy, I think it was his former campaign worker, who didn't have health insurance, okay? And he comes down with he becomes ill. I can't remember if it was cancer or whatnot. Should society basically say, you are crap out of luck? Sorry, you made your choice. We live in a libertarian, fantasy world. If you make that mistake, you lose.
Okay, there are two points about that. First of all, I would say that that's quite the libertarian characterization of that, or that's not the way that I would characterize what he's saying. The way I would characterize it is that we don't support taxation for the purposes of helping this person out with that.
Okay, so how would you help? How would society help that out? Or do you think society has any role? Do you think our government has any role in helping that person out?
Not the government, no.
Okay.
No, because...
So it's just if you're lucky enough for a charity to come along and have the resources to help you, you're in good shape. But if you're not, you're crap out of luck. Is that an accurate representation of that of what Ron Paul's saying?
Yes, I suppose it is.
Okay, so that's what I take issue with. Because A, we know there's not enough resources in the world for charitable organizations to do that. B, we know they don't. They just don't. They don't even have the resources, and I don't think they have the inclination half the time. They're not set up to do that. So my first, you may not like the first way that I characterize it, but that's the truth. Okay, you're just saying We have no problem if someone divinely intervenes. We're not pro people dying. We're just like against any attempt to save their lives if it is done in an organized fashion by society.
Well, in an organized fashion, relying on the use of force, and what I think.
And by use of force, let me explain to people who don't understand what you're referring to there. You don't like taxation because it is a monopoly of force exercised by the government, and it takes your money, right?
No, well, sorry, it's not because it's a monopoly. That's a bit of
okay.
A side issue. It's just because it is a use of force, and this is a point that I often make whenever people are patient enough to talk politics, is that I think the same moral rules apply to everyone. Okay, you agree with that?
I don't know. You have to be more explicit, but probably.
Okay. But as a basic tenet, basically, if moral rules apply, I think they apply to everyone. And I know that progressives, for instance, like to say that corporations are not people, and so they don't have the rights of people. But I think that corporations are groups of people, and so they have the rights that those groups of people have.
Okay.
Right? And so if people band together to make some sort of political speech, then they have that right.
Of course, people don't need to be. People don't have charters that are signed off by the government. People exist in nature.
People, no.
People exist in nature, but corporations don't.
Right.
So, right. But aside from that,
right. Okay. But I think people can band together and decide to make a political speech. But be that as may, you think that groups of people.
Hold on. Let me jump ahead here because I know where you're going with this. I've heard this before. So I want to jump ahead so that we can carry this forward. You think that all morals should apply to everybody. No one should have the right to use force to force another person to do something if they're not acting in self-defense. And therefore, for you, taxation is essentially theft at the end of a gun. And I would say to you, yes, it is. And what is your alternate version of society? Because I'll tell you something. Contracts are also enforced at the butt of a gun by government.
Well, yes, but hold on. Contracts are things, things that I think are morally enforceable. Contracts are contracts that people have taken upon themselves.
Okay, so we're going by your morals.
That's voluntary.
Okay, so we're going by your morals.
Well, I mean, you have to go by someone's, and I think I have a consistent set of moral rules.
All right.
About
now when we put you in charge of determining the morals of, because this is where it comes down to. Like I had this argument this weekend. Like I just don't think that society should exist to help other people, and. And as manifested by the government. I don't think that should happen. Or I don't think I should be forced. I've had this conversation. I shouldn't be forced to serve gay people at my establishment because that's an infringement on my freedom. Now, of course, I would serve gay people. I'm not like that. And anybody who didn't, their business would suffer, although there's absolutely no data to show that in any way.
I think actually, I think the business does suffer exactly the way it should.
Right. Tell it to Chick-fil-A. But listen, or Chick-fil-A or whatever that place is. So
I'm very happy not to know that place.
Well, yes, but you know who does know that? A bunch of homophobes, and they eat there. In fact, they had celebrations to eat there because they were so anti-gay.
Right.
All right. But so much for that story that you tell yourself. But aside from that, if it's just going to come down to whose morals are we going to go for, then I got news for you. You guys lost this. You lost this debate ages ago because most people, when faced with the idea of should we let that guy die in the street, as a government, as a society, the answer is no.
Well,
even if it means oppressively taking taxes, which, I got news for you. This country's always taken taxes. Always. Yeah. So I don't know what country you're looking to go to, but as far as I can tell, what are the countries that don't take taxes in this world?
Well, I don't know of any.
Yes. I mean, I think there might be a garbage scow that people are setting up, a large garbage scow that is going to be into international waters. We'll see how that goes. Of course, you got to pay to get a part of that, which some people might consider taxes. But I mean, here's the bottom line is that you cannot pretend that this philosophy where there should be no use of force in taking taxes doesn't lead to what it leads to. I mean, this is the thing. You want both. You want your cake and you want to eat too. I don't want that guy to die. I want to be able to say I don't want that guy to die on the street. But for that to actually happen, either one of two things has to happen. Either we have to take taxes and build a support system so that guy doesn't die on the street, or the alternate is there literally has to be the divine intervention or alien intervention. Maybe like somebody from a different planet comes down and says, we've been sent here from planet Libertariansville, and we're going to make this whole system work for you by rescuing these people so that nobody has to use any force. I'm sorry, that doesn't happen. So you actually have to own the implications of your philosophy, your set of beliefs, whatever you want to call it, your religion.
Okay. Well, I suppose I don't know. I think religion is definitely the wrong term.
Okay, I apologize. Your philosophy.
Well, anyway, that's not a big point. But actually, yes, I think I am able to own that, and I think it's fully consistent for me to do that. But wait, just a few points about that. I also wanted to point out that you use a few intellectual double standards when making arguments, for example, against libertarian positions that I don't think you would accept in the case of arguing against your positions.
Okay.
Like for example, you just asked me, is there a country in the world that doesn't take taxes? And I've heard you many times, I don't know, but many times you've asked people, where is this free market? When has there ever been a free market?
Right.
And I'm not even sure which point you're trying to make about whether it is feasible or whether it's even desirable to have a free market.
It's neither feasible. It's not feasible. It doesn't exist. It's like unicorns, I guess, are desirable, but they don't exist.
Okay. Now let me ask you, have you ever had guests on your show who talked about equality of opportunity, full equality of opportunity?
Sure.
Have you ever asked them when in the history of mankind there's ever been full equality of opportunity?
No.
Now, isn't that basically the same form of argumentation, though?
No, because en route to your utopia, it leaves death and destruction and corporate power in its wake. En route to the utopia of equal opportunity, all you get is slightly incrementally more opportunity for people.
Well, wait a second. Now that's a different argument, actually. That's a different point you're making.
No. My point is that when we talk about increasing opportunity, the idea isn't to get to a day where there's complete opportunity. That'd be nice, but that's not incumbent upon me. I'm more happy if tomorrow there can be slightly more opportunity than there was today for people. Yes, but the fact of the matter is there is no free market. There is no free market. And when you go incrementally towards free market, all you're talking about is deregulation. That means that more people suffer. That means that there's more leaks of chemicals into our water. That means that there's more people who die on the street because there's no health insurance. I mean, we could deregulate health insurance now, and we could go back to where we were 4 years ago, where if you have a pre-existing condition, you can't get health insurance.
Okay, so there are a few different issues here. First of all, I will point out that really that is a different argument that you're making, that actually...
No, it's a different argument to you because you have this sense that philosophy and this political theory of yours has to be about consistent principles. No, I'm interested in outcomes, better outcomes for people. That's my principle, period. I don't care if what I'm saying falls into a rubric of libertarianism or liberalism or progressivism or Bolshevism. It doesn't matter to me.
No, but wait a second. If you're making the same argument, let's say against one of my positions or against one of your positions, it's equally good or equally bad in either case, no?
No, because The position of more opportunity is more opportunity, not free market. Free market is a binary thing. It doesn't exist. There is no free market. It does not exist.
That's not true.
Show me one.
Okay, well, again, to the extent...
All right, let me ask you this. You want me to be consistent? Does more opportunity exist?
Show me full equality of opportunity.
Does the concept of, I didn't say full equal opportunity, does more opportunity exist?
Okay.
Is there more opportunity for more people today than there was 30 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago?
Okay.
Yes,
so free market.
yes.
To the extent that people are allowed
you just want
to
a freer market. And you know what a freer market is?
Okay, I want as free a market as possible.
Corporate, yes, and as free a market as possible is one where there is it's impossible because there'll always be a government. So the question is, who's the government? Who are the winners and losers the government's going to choose? Because there's always going to be a situation where winners and losers are being chosen by a government, unless you get to your free market, which does not exist.
What?
So you're just going to go towards this goal that does not exist, and all it's going to do is the government is going to choose large corporations further and more and more and more. That's all that happens.
Okay, so arguing that large corporations should not get special favors from the government, that's what, just invalid to you? I mean... No,
I'm saying governments always choose winners and losers. Every single decision they make decides who the winners and losers are going to be. And I just want the winners to be people or entities which provide more benefit for more people.
Okay, so people engaging in exchanges that they, both parties voluntarily agree to, I think that by definition benefits both parties.
Okay.
I have trouble thinking of anything that could actually go against that idea. I mean, just by definition to me, that's the case. And the more people are allowed to engage in the exchanges that they would like to.
So you see, okay, here's my problem. Here's my problem. Your assumption is those two people are entering into that agreement with some type of power symmetry and some type of information symmetry. If I'm a starving guy and you're a company and I need food for my dying child, okay, it's maybe a mutual benefiting agreement in some sense if the guy says, I'll be your slave for the rest of time. I know for you and your theory, if someone agrees to be a slave, then he has his reasons or she has his reasons and they can become a slave forever. And that's all well and good. I just don't believe that. I just don't believe that people can enter into a free exchange of stuff when there is that much of an unequal power dynamic.
Okay, first of all, how does this apply to, for example, the minimum wage? Because people know exactly what the wage is that they're going to be paid, presumably. Otherwise, it's just fraud on the part of an employer.
Right.
So there's no information asymmetry there.
Right.
So, for example,
there is a power. There is a power asymmetry. There is it's economically coercive if someone is broke in our society. And I'm sorry, that corporation takes from me as a taxpayer. They get benefit from me. They are benefiting, whatever it is. Name it in the real world corporation that is faced with this, and I will tell you the benefit that they get.
And I will
my roads,
they're receiving that just as much
infrastructure.
as you. I mean, sorry?
My roads, my infrastructure.
Okay, for which they also pay, mind you.
But, I mean, they certainly didn't pay enough to build the roads. Walmart didn't pay enough to build all the roads in this country. I'm sorry.
Well, you know what? I do agree with you on the point that people ought to be paying them to the extent that they're using them. I think that there would be lots of good effects to that. But anyway, to get back to the minimum wage, though, so you think that actually a person who would accept, for example, you support a $15 an hour minimum wage, is that right?
Sure.
Okay. So you think that a person who would want to accept a $12 an hour paying job is not actually being benefited from that?
I think so. I think that person would quite readily also accept a $15 an hour job. I don't think they'd go like,
You take that
I prefer
15
the 12.
and you get the fuck out of my face.
I don't think
want
that's
12.
specifically for 12.
Look, first of all, one is better than zero.
Yes, exactly.
and
I get it.
12
I get it. One is better than zero. But if you cannot raise a family on it in the real world, yes, that $12 an hour would be great if that person could be sent back to 1930. Okay, then they'd be living large. But the point is, in the real world, when you get out of the fact is that $12 an hour, depending on which city it is in, most cities, is not a sustainable living wage.
Wait a second. Didn't you say on Friday with that presumably drunk libertarian guy who called you that the premise of your argument wasn't that employers have to pay everybody what could support a family of four? I mean, he asked you about that, and you just kind of said, well, no, but... And then he just kind of...
I don't.
Or whatever it was.
To be honest with you, I don't remember.
But I mean, I believe he asked you that, and you kind of said no, but I mean, that is basically the premise that you're coming back to, and the premise you've used many times.
The premise that I think people should get paid a living wage.
Well, the premise... yeah, okay, that's one way of saying it, that employers have to pay enough to support a family of four with one income, with American standard full-time work.
I think that I don't know that I would make that blanket of a statement, but yeah, that is the general premise. When you ask me, is $12 beneficial? I would say it is borderline, and 8, 9, I don't think it is. I think you need to be able to pay people a living wage. That's right.
Okay. Now, I mean, it basically is the underlying premise of your argument for the $15 minimum wage. That, and you seem to be assuming that would have no effect on employment. That
I think it's going to have minimal effect on employment, but I think that on balance, the policy makes sense.
Okay, and there are a few other, I guess, underlying assumptions. Namely, first of all, that if two people want to engage in a transaction or an exchange, that it's legitimate for a third party to force them not to.
That's right. Well, not just also, a third party, the government. Yes.
Yeah, well, it's a third party. Yeah.
Yes, no, but I'm not saying any third party. I'm saying a specific third party.
Okay, well, again, me, since I judge the morality of it, irrespective.
Yes, no,
of
I know.
who it
In
is.
your world, there's no difference between a government and some dude who just walks down the street. But in my world, there is. That the fact that we have democracy, that we vote for this, as flawed as it may be, does give them legitimate power. We are citizens of a country. We're not just some aliens who are meeting in a space bar somewhere. I'm sorry, dude. There is a difference. Like, you've got to get this through your head. I get what your philosophy is. For you, it's a third party. It doesn't matter because you are based on these principles. Everything else it is all binary for you. But for me, it makes a difference that it's a government. That's what government's for. And that's why, and that is it perfect? No, I wish we could live in this whole place where we're just orbs floating around. We never have to worry about eating too much sugar or anybody using force. We all know doing the right thing would be the right thing, and that's it. It would all be great. But that's not the world we live in. We live in a world where we need governments, and the government needs to have some authority.
Well, hold on. I have no objection to the use of force in some circumstances. It's just that it has to be a circumstance.
Oh, yes, I know. Just in self-defense. But look, I get it.
Well, okay. Sorry, go ahead.
But do you understand that it makes a difference to me who that third party is? Do you understand why?
No, because really, to me, they're just people. I mean, the morality of it doesn't change according to who it is.
Listen, we're gonna do this again because to you, there is no difference between the government or the mafia or, I don't know, a roving band of villains. It doesn't matter about whether or not they're elected or whatnot. And for you, time starts today.
Well, there's a big difference. Government has much better PR. I will give them that.
Okay. And to you, history starts today. So all this accumulation that people have going into this agreement, right, between the guy who's going to sell himself for $1.50 an hour and the guy who has a massive store of wealth and controls, the town store, the company store, whatnot. There's no difference because history starts today, right? And so everybody starts off at the same place. It's very convenient for those who already are doing well. Not so convenient for those who aspire to have more.
I don't see where you get the premise that history starts today. But
you just say when two people meet, right? I mean, going forward, if we're going to impose your more free market-y world, presumably everybody doesn't get stripped of everything they own, do they?
Well, okay, if you want to talk about, for example, some of the companies who've received unfair benefits.
Yes, absolutely.
That being stripped
everybody.
Away.
I'll tell you what. I will sign on to your agenda. Maybe. Let me just reserve the right to change my mind. When everybody takes everything they own and puts it into one big pot, and then we all start fresh, like newborn babies. And then we can enter into these agreements.
Well, again, I don't take that sort of a historical view or any sort of... I don't think that's necessary. We all have moral rights.
I was being facetious. I didn't think it could actually happen.
Despite the fact
but listen, I do have to go. But I appreciate the call, and let's do this again. But it's been 20 minutes, and I appreciate the fact that you were sober.
Next time, have a couple of drinks.
Well, thank you. Can I just point out one thing, though?
Sure.
No.
Okay. One more underlying assumption about the minimum wage. Is that, okay, there are wages so low that they're practically not a benefit to people, right?
Right.
Now, another assumption is that the better person to judge what that level is for any given person is not the person who voluntarily accepts the wage, but you.
Well, not me. There's actually a formula.
You support the policy.
There's a formula.
Anybody else who supports that policy.
There's a formula. It basically, a living wage is considered that which can provide. Now, you can argue about whether or not the formula is derived properly, but we have a formula, which is, it's I guess somewhat arbitrary, but not completely uneducated. And that is like, we have a formula for that. If you're earning, $24,000 a year, I think with a family of 4 or 3 kids or 2 kids, the numbers escape me, but you're considered to be living in poverty. You can argue the specifics of the formula, and I'm open to that. But yes, it is arbitrary. It's not me that determines these, but I subscribe to and there are times where I say, oh, that formula should be raised. We should raise that formula. We should lower that formula, or whatever it is. But there is a formula, so it's not completely arbitrary.
But again, you're taking everyone as being one average and not looking at the individual factors.
That is correct. When we talk about policy for a 300 million person country, that is exactly right. And I will concede that is a flaw that we will never be able to fix. But we don't live in an agrarian society where there's 35 people and we're, all wearing like long hats with buckles on them anymore. I'm sorry, that time is gone. But I appreciate the call.
Maybe one. Okay.
No, you gave me one thought. All right, bye-bye.
Yeah. All right.
And in fact, I will say this. There is, I got a good story from on the LA minimum wage. And maybe we'll have her on if we have time this week, or I'll definitely cover the story, where there is a problem with the minimum wage being raised to $15 an hour. And that is that it could end up net being problematic for some people living in poverty now in terms of the services they lose that they may have a hard time replacing even though they have more money. In other words, one of the big ones seems to be Head Start. That if you go from like making $8, $9 an hour and let's say you're a mother with 2 or 3 kids and you get $15 an hour, $15 an hour will raise you out of poverty. You will not be eligible for some Head Start benefits, and to go out in the market and replace that will actually be too expensive. So you may go to one that is less quality. So there's no policy that one can pursue where there isn't some unintended and unwanted consequences. But the way I would fix that is I would make more universal pre-K. That would increase benefits. There's always going to be a little sort of concentric circles where that's going to be a problem. Where are you disincentivizing people from taking that job or that last couple of hours of work because they can actually get more money? We're not talking a lot of money, but they can get more. Make an extra $50 a month, $100 a month, $200 a month if I don't take those extra 3 hours of work, because those 3 hours of work will pay me $45. Whereas if I don't have those 3 hours of work and I don't cross that threshold, I'd get $200 worth of food stamps. I'm just hypothetically speaking. But you're always going to have that problem. There are some problems that are just baked into the cake.